Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. This week we're going to be working again with some beautiful maple burl, and along with that I think I'll add some pine cones to this casting and a new technique with the pine cones that we haven't done before. So anyway, let's move over to the bench and we'll get these pieces cut up and ready for casting along with the pine cones. Alright, so here is our two pieces of burl. Haven't figured out what we're going to use for a casting bucket yet. Give me a second. Okay, so here's the bucket we're going to be using. And we'll be able to cut these up with the template after. But what I want to do right now is essentially take these white pine cones and frost them with Crystal Ice White from Designer Epoxy. And I want it, when I look down on these, I want to make sure that everything is frosted nicely when it's sitting in the casting. And combined with some magenta, it should actually look pretty nice. What you're looking at there is the 5-minute epoxy from Designer Epoxy. Unfortunately, it isn't available yet, hopefully soon. It is important when you mix this up, you don't mix it up on, say, paper that's going to absorb any of the two parts. You want them to be squeezed out equally, and you don't want to lose any to absorption into something like paper. All right, once that's done, I got to move quickly with this. Down a piece of paper so it can catch any of the overspill. Something like that. I'll try and get rid of any excess. I am planning on cutting off this because the casting isn't really that deep, but hopefully when we look down on this it should give us a pretty cool look. Anyway, you get the idea. I'll bring you back when I'm all done. Alright, so my original plan was to use two pieces like this, but you know, I want to use pretty much as much of this as I can, and that doesn't really leave a whole lot of room on this side, so I think we'll save that for another time. And this whole low area, I'll fill it in with these pine cones. I don't know if I have enough of these done, but I guess we'll find out once we start to cast them. I do plan on chopping them down a little bit so they fit better. Anyway, I think I'm just going to throw some tape on this, stick it in place, and we'll cut it on the bandsaw. I certainly could have used my circle cutting jig here. I just didn't really see, by the time I'd set it up, it was just easier to stick this down on, on this piece of wood and then round it on the bandsaw. And there you go, easy peasy. Now this will be mostly directed at the people that are new to resin casting. When you're working with wood pieces like this, it's very important to get rid of this bark. If the bark stays in place, you could have the bark delaminating from the wood, and then of course you're going to have a failed project, and nobody wants that. Watch out for them spikes, they're sharp. I should be wearing gloves when I'm doing this. Believe it or not, the spikes on this stuff can be quite sharp and can cut you pretty badly, so keep an eye out for that. But of course, good old-fashioned band-aid and electrical tape work fantastic. Once we get the majority of the bark off, this is the brass coated brush, and it does a fantastic job cleaning up around them spikes. I really like working with burls like this that are spiky in this nature because they just give you a really cool look when they're cast with resin. And there you go, ready for the casting bucket. Now I want to glue this in place. I don't want to put any weights on this to affect what will be our design. And I initially started with the hot melt glue to try and hold these in place, and well, it just wasn't working. I know you guys can't really see, but sorry about that. There's not really much I can do about it. If I can't see, we're really in trouble. I don't know, something like that. Now I did glue this one down, but that's a bit of a struggle to say the least. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do here is just take some CA glue and drizzle it on top of this, and hopefully that will lock them all together, including on top of the burl. Should mention that it is the Starbond thin I'm using, and the accelerator to set it. Good old Starbond to the rescue. Sometimes, you know, I could have got away with maybe using the UV resin here, but, you know, this is easy. And like I said in the past, I don't know how you can be a wood turner and not use CA glue of some sort. There, they seem to be fairly secured now. Let's mix up some resin. For this casting, we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. This was over 1 inch deep, so Art Cast really wasn't an option here. And like I said earlier, magenta. We're going to be using that primary as the primary color in this bowl. Absolutely love this color, and I know that it's a fan favorite as well. All right, so I've got 1.5 liters here, and I'm hoping that this is going to do it, but probably not. Yeah, I'm probably going to mix up another liter. I'll bring it back when that's ready. All right, so actually this is another 1.5 liters, and I know that may seem like a lot, but that burl is going to really soak up a lot of this epoxy, and I need the height that we've got right now. I did mix the magenta just a little bit lighter too. All right, well, that's going to do it. I'll get this in the pressure pot. I'll see you guys in 3 days. Good morning. I think we're successful. Things are nice and cured up. Let's see what it takes to get this out of here. Actually, almost the perfect amount of resin. Just sitting on top of the burl here. Exactly what you want. Tuck tape pieces from here. So once we've got a little recess here for the live center and the drive center, we'll get this mounted on the lathe. I do have a clear plastic center finder, but I find it just easier to use these templates that I use to cut out the castings for the buckets. That looks pretty good. All right, so now that we're securely mounted on the lathe, time to rescue that piece of wood from this epoxy that it's encased in. And once I've got that, basically all of the wood exposed and the pine cones to where I want them to be, then we'll be able to do some coring on this. I know that it's not in the title, but I do some coring on this. I don't see the point in not doing coring when you have an opportunity to do it. So that's why I typically always do. And I should mention that we're using the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. I like to use those real-time clips when I can. This is a little shorter video, so there's at least another 2 more on this, I think. So I know it's important I think that a lot of times when these videos are sped up like they are, you just don't really get the real sense of what it's like turning these pieces on the lathe for the non-turners, and even for the turners that say don't do resin turning. It gives you an idea of the noises that are associated with it and the speed and the control. One thing when you're watching me use the Hercules, you'll see me more or less always trying to find the perfect spot for the cutter to ride on. And that's no different than using a gouge. There's a sweet spot on every tool that you use. There's a sweet spot that tool wants to cut most efficiently at. And most of the time when you see me use this tool, it's on a 45-degree angle like it is there. And really on the push cuts is where you'll see me kind of wiggling the tool ever so slightly back and forth. And just look for those movements when, when I show it here again. But, that burl is fantastic. Absolutely beautiful burl. And that actually I got that from KJP Select Hardwoods in Ottawa. And that's an offcut. So they cut out large bowl blanks. And then, of course, that's offcuts that I think are, keeps increasing. $4 to $5, $6 a pound. So that's what you can expect to pay for a burl such as this. And trust me, you don't get a lot of burl for, there's not a lot of burl in a pound typically. And there's our first real look at this beauty. Love the burl, love the pine cone, everything about it I really like. So here's one of those zoomed out views that people seem to like. Shows basically hand position, body position when you're working with the Hercules. Again, this is a very user-friendly tool. And again, there is a link in the description to get 10% off your next order if you want to try one out. And they have a fantastic line of tools, actually. And Mike is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I've never personally met Mike, but I've talked to Mike a number of times on the phone. And he's an absolutely fantastic guy to deal with. So highly recommend 100 Tools. Don't forget that cleanup. So this bowl has relatively straight sides on it. So using the cold jaws here to hold this so we can get a glue block on the bottom is a little risky. There's not a lot of grip there. And I'm just going to hit it with some 60 grit on the very bottom. And then, of course, we'll be able to get the hot melt glue end grain waste block mounted. And once that's done, we'll be able to trim it up. It usually takes, I like to give it about 15 minutes for it to harden up before I do anything with it. Usually, you're probably after 5 minutes safe to do it, but I prefer to let it sit for a while just to make sure the things don't go flying across the workshop, because nobody wants that. Nobody. We are all set up and ready for coring. This is the one-way coring system from oneway.ca. I've got my Core Pro cutter in from Hunter Tool Systems. Absolutely love this tool. If you have this system, I highly recommend getting one of these. I'm not going to be able to use any tailstock support. I don't think. I do have the #1 knife set in. And this rim is going to be really, really thick. The reason for that is I don't want to lose these flowers. That's one of the main reasons why I orientated these this way. And I know they're not flowers, they're cones, but they totally look like flowers after this will be polished. Anyway, that's the hope. Yeah, we'll see how we make out. Maybe when I get in far enough, I might be able to bring up the tailstock, but anyway, let's find out. It's been a while since we've done some coring, and of course, one thing that blows me away, look, I know that wood turning tools are expensive, and actually look at the shavings coming off that Core Pro cutter, like wow. But the thing is, when it comes to these coring rigs, you'll get your money back literally probably the first time you use it in stock. That's probably the big thing. So that little bowl that I'm taking out there, say it's $100. If you do these castings and then you do 4 or 5 of these, well, that's $400 to $500 in return, and you've paid for your rig. And then, of course, you've got it to do all kinds of other coring with. Highly recommend getting a coring rig. You don't need a super heavy duty lathe to do coring, although, you know, this is a 2 horsepower motor. Yeah, and look at that core. It's a beautiful little bowl, little box, whatever you want to use it for. So anyway, I highly recommend getting a coring rig. It's a shame to see this stuff go to the floor, because that's exactly what would happen. If you don't have this coring rig, it's just going to be turned into shavings, and, you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. Now, earlier I was talking about rocking the tool and finding that sweet spot. So, you know, get that bevel rubbing. And then, of course, just those little micro adjustments will cut the surface really cleanly. And these are just finishing cuts, and that's kind of what you should be looking for. You shouldn't be looking for big, heavy material when you're taking finishing cuts. And as you can see there, the surface is cut very clean, which is tough to do with burl and resin. So this is, like you've seen in the thumbnail, this is a pretty beefy bowl. And, you know, this is right up my alley. I know that I'm converting a lot of people to thinking that these thin little bowls are where it's at, where I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way at all. When I pick up a bowl, I want something with some mass. I want it to, I don't know, to be substantial. And I could have certainly gone thinner on this, but of course then we're going to lose kind of that pine cone petal frosted look. It's not going to be there. So that's why this is as thick as it is. As you can see, we're now up to 1,000 RPM. Little tough with the burl on one side and the resin on the other. I'm actually surprised that I was able to get it to this RPM. I was only at 750 before and couldn't go any higher than that until I got it trimmed down to where it's at now. So here's your weekly house selling update, and there's nothing to report. We've had one showing. Again, it is just really, really slow. The market is flat here. There are a few houses being sold. It is getting busier. There are more houses on the market now, but it's just incredibly slow right now. It's still early as far as the military and posting messages and all that is concerned, since we live next to a military base here in Canada. But anyway, I know a lot of people are really waiting for us to get down there and film the build, and I don't really know where we're going to be at on that. It's just a whole lot of unknown right now, and it's just something that we're going to have to react to instead of plan, because we can't really plan anything until we know when the closing house is, or the closing date is on the house, and so on and so on and so on. So hopefully things pick up and we'll be able to move forward with our lives. These are the 3.5-inch dipple discs from sandpaper.ca. They also have 2.5-inch dipple discs as well. If you're into smaller sanding discs, I prefer the 3.5-inch, but that's just me. And, you know, that kind of gives you an idea of how thick this bowl is. It's definitely a paperweight bowl. I think is a fitting name for this as well. So deep down inside of this burl, there's some fixes we need to do, and we'll be able to sort those out with the UV resin. Well, what do you think so far? I know there's going to be a lot of mixed emotions on this one. A lot of people don't like these really thick turnings, but we've got some voids to fill. So what I'm going to do is mix up some UV resin from Designer Epoxy, and I'm just going to add a little bit of magenta in there, and we'll fill all these holes and get back on the lathe. There, that should work. Now all I'm going to do is fill these and then quickly set them with the UV light. If you haven't seen this before, it's cured with a UV light. And then once that's done, I'll be able to just place the lights on top of this and cure it up totally. I see one spot that I didn't get right back. Now I certainly could have used clear UV resin here. I decided to tint this, and if you're going to attempt to do some tinting with this UV resin, or any resin really, when you're trying to fix areas like this, I highly recommend just tinting it slightly lighter than the existing tint that you're going to see within the project you're working on. And anyway, I'm just quickly setting these so that they're not going to run, and then once all the holes are filled, we'll cure them properly. All right, so now that all of our holes are filled, I'll just take these two UV lights, set them on the top, probably leave it there for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back on the lathe. So now that the UV resin has set, I'm just doing some spot sanding just to grind it down to the surface of the wood. And then of course you'll see me turn the lathe on and blend it all in. I do plan on doing an epoxy coat after this. So I'm only going to sand to 180. So that's where we're at now. I don't see the point really going much higher than that. Maybe 220, that'd be about it. Still another hole to fill. Sand one down and then you expose another one. So even though I filled in the major big holes in this burl, there's some other smaller little ones, and around these little petals, there's some pieces of it missing. So, or I should say cones, not petals, because they look like flowers to me. But anyway, I've got 3 ounces of the Pro Series mixed up here. We'll give this a good coating, and hopefully it'll fill in all those areas, and then we'll carry on with Waterlux tomorrow. So I personally find using the silicone barbecue brush the most effective way to get this epoxy on here. You can certainly put on way too much. It's not really that huge of a deal to take it off. But I find using my glove hand afterwards to push it into those cracks and little crevices works the best. Well, what do you think? Do you think they look like flowers? I think they do. And kind of on the outside, it looks like skeletons. Beautiful burl. Beautiful, beautiful burl. Love how it comes through here. Very cool. Let me know in the comments what you think. Back this light up so we can see what's going on here. There, that's a good look at them. All right, we'll see you tomorrow for the first coat of Waterlux. Well, good morning. It is the next day. The good thing is when you look at the wood, it's all shiny, so that's good. That means that the wood's been sealed up. Now, unfortunately, we're going to break through that. Overall, I'm relatively pleased with the way it looks, and we should be able to get away with doing 2 coats of Waterlux, and this beauty should be done. So this time we're going to be sanding from 180 to 800, and you know, typically I'll burn through 2 180 pieces of sandpaper doing this. You gotta, like I put this on and basically burn the bubbles off, and then I set it on the bench. So it's not really, it doesn't have time to set. So there might be some small little runs and sags in there, but they're usually not all that big, as long as you don't put on copious amounts of the epoxy when you first do the epoxy coat. And of course that is the Triple E buffing compound from the Beal buffing system. And once this is done, we'll be able to clean this off with some denatured alcohol and get to our first coat of finish. Yuck. All right, I thought I would show this. This is probably only going to be for the Canadians in the crowd. I got this at Home Hardware, and it is a 5-pound bag of rags. So this will probably easily last me a year or more. I can't remember exactly what I paid for them, but I thought it was pretty reasonable. Anyway, I got this at Home Hardware in Canada. All right, this is the first coat of Waterlux Gloss. Well, it's probably not a huge change for you looking at this, but for me it definitely is. It's a lot flatter now. Man, I love that Waterlux. There are flowers, pine cone flowers. I mean, that burl is just amazing stuff too. And if it was thinner, we would lose this detail. We would definitely lose this detail. I don't know. I just, I'm good with my decision to leave it thick. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I think 2 coats is going to do it. So tomorrow I'll just buff this piece the way that I did today. I'll put the next coat of finish on, and then we'll see when we're doing the bottom. So after 2 coats of finish, we are ready to put this on the vacuum chuck. That is my 8-inch drum. That's the largest one that I have anyway. And it's got a ton of pull on it. So when a project goes on, or when a bowl goes on, something like this, it's actually quite hard to pull it off. Anyway, once we get this trimmed up with the gouge, we'll be able to sand this piece. And on the bottom, I just went to 400. So I started at 80 and went all the way to 400. That's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let's have a last little chat about this week's project. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think of this. Another gray, rainy day here in Eastern Ontario, Canada. I really, really like the cones. This burl is just, well, the burl is spectacular. I'm just going to say it. It's absolutely spectacular. Little spikes up in here to go with our pine cone forest. Amazing burl. Here is the very bottom. I was able to engrave this piece. That's mostly because it's all wood and it looks good. There's just one little soft area there, but other than that, it's pretty good. And as you can see, there's no finish on it because it's Thursday and I'm running out of time. So this will probably need 3 coats of finish on the bottom. Should give you some sizes here. So this is 8.5 inches across, 3¼ inches tall, and it's 1 inch thick. And this weighs 3.5 pounds, and that is 1.5 kilograms. So for its size, it's definitely a paperweight. That's for sure. Anyway, I absolutely love these turnings with mass, and hopefully you guys do. So please leave me a comment down below, and let me know what you think about this beautiful bowl. Tilted in sides just slightly. I did that after the cold jaws because it would have been very hard to hold on to otherwise. Anyway, this piece is for sale. If you're interested, send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com and I will disclose the price then in case this is a gift. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next 3-gallon giveaway at 130,000 subscribers when we get there. It's really slow right now, springtime, I get it, but we will eventually get there. And of course, it's only for Canada and the lower 48 US states, or the rest of the world we can't accommodate you on that giveaway. And along with that, by commenting down below, you'll also be entered into my giveaway at 130,000 subscribers when we get there as well. Another thing that I need to address is I'm getting lots of friends requests on Facebook, on my personal Facebook, and I'm sorry, if I don't know you, I won't be accepting your friend's request. And I think a lot of times those people are trying to follow me on my business Facebook, which is Sprague Woodturning. It's under the same name as it is here on YouTube. So if you're looking to see more condensed videos, that's where you'll find them on my channel. On my site on Facebook, my business site. And I post the videos from YouTube there, and there's also condensed ones on there as well. They're being done by Voo Media at the moment. All right, next week we're going to the desert. Haven't been to the desert in a long time, so we're going to the desert. And that's all I'm going to say. So please come on back for that. Thanks again to everybody that watched last week. Thanks again to the members. I really appreciate your support. And of course, the people that give me super stickers and super chats. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. All right, well, that's it. Take care. Stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That is the largest way for me to build my presence here on YouTube. Sharing my videos with your friends. And of course, that thumbs up really helps the analytics as well. So please do that. All right, that's it. See you next week. Hopefully.